wah. Right, let's crack on with another one. So this is another new distillery that is an old distillery, but is a new distillery. And I think even on their website, they're actually marketing themselves as the newest old distillery that there is, or something like that. So this is Kilkerran, which the distillery is also known as Glengyle. Now, Glengyle is on a peninsula of Scotland called Campbeltown, which is very, very highly regarded. And at the turn of the century, had about 36, 37 distilleries, and was a bit of a, for a relatively small part of Scotland, was a bit of a hub for Scotch whisky. But by the 1920s, we had two left. Springbank, which is probably the best known of it, and Glen Scotia. Now, Glen Scotia is owned by I'm pretty certain owned by the Loch Lomond company that own that. So Springbank is the kind of the independently owned, very highly regarded, doing things, experimentational, but also doing things properly. Glen Scotia is kind of a bit more of a bigger company, but we're not talking Diageo levels. And Kilkerran is a relatively new distillery that was based on the Glengyle distillery that was founded in 1872 by a guy called William Mitchell, who previously owned Springbank, which opened earlier, but he fell out with his brother John, and basically big argument. William left, set up his own distillery. It almost sounds like do you know what, bollocks to you, I'll go and do my own. And he set up the Glengyle distillery. Now, it was bought out by a company whose name completely escapes me, which went into voluntary liquidation in 1924. So it closed the following year, and basically remained dormant. Another company called the Block Brothers bought it in the mid 1930s with the intention of reopening it, but it actually, because of World War II, everything fell apart. Not literally fell apart, it was just there was no demand, the costs were too high, everybody was concentrating on the war effort. So by the 1970s, it was actually headquarters of the Kintyre Farmers Cooperative, because this is part of Kintyre, Mull of Kintyre, that crappy Christmas Paul McCartney song. This is that sort of area. So by the 1970s, it was actually like the milling house was being used to store animal feed and things like that. So in 2004, a guy called Headley Wright, who, a bit like William Mitchell, a bit like William Mitchell, was actually a previous owner of Springbank. Now, he bought the buildings. He actually bought in equipment for some other older distilleries. So Ben Wyvis, he bought the stills in from there because that had closed down, and reopened the distillery. Now, Springbank Campbeltown is very highly regarded, so there was a kind of demand for another Campbeltown because it's got this kind of romance about it was a hub for Scotch whisky, and it's very distinctive style. And if you look at a number of sort of maps of Scotch regions, some of them will have Lowland, Speyside, Highland, Islay, and actually keep Campbeltown separate, even though up to 2004 there was only two operating, but it's still that highly regarded that it tends to get kind of separated off to everything else. So there was a demand there. So it reopened, and by 2007 they had a new make release out, and then in 2012, that was when their first single malt release came out. I completely forgot to mention that this donation of Kilkerran was by the lovely Joe Lawson. So Joe, thank you very much for this. I know I've been sat on this for a while, but I will get around to them eventually. So what they've done is they've launched them as like limited edition releases called Work in Progress. So it's like a couple of different wood maturations or wood finishes. So this particular one is Work in Progress 7. A bit like English Whiskey Company, where they had like chapters and it was different versions, and kind of you can see a progression going through, or they might be trying peated versions and things like that. So Work in Progress 7, there's a bourbon wood and a sherry wood. I think there's another one as well, but I can't remember what it is. So this particular one that Joe donated was the sherry wood. I think she gave me, from what I can remember, she actually gave me the choice of, do you want bourbon, do you want sherry? I thought, we'll go for the sherry, see what it's like. That would have been her recommendation anyway, fortunately. So they have been doing this, but this is apparently the last one before there is then going to be a Kilkerran 12-year-old, like a standard bottling. Now, the reason it's called Kilkerran and not Glengyle is because the Loch Lomond distillery company actually own the naming rights of the word Glengyle, because they have a blended malt that is called Glengyle. So the Glengyle distillery, and when the company was set up to reopen the distillery, it was actually called Mitchell's of Glengyle. They couldn't release their single malt as Glengyle, so they've called it Kilkerran. Now, Kilkerran is actually Campbeltown area used to be called Kinloch Kilkerran, which is kind of bastardisation of the Scottish Gaelic for it's essentially the name of the settlement of Saint Kerran, which is kind of that region. So Kilkerran is harking back to one of the original names of this area of land. So it's 46%. Price-wise, from what I could find, it was looking at about 55 quid, but it looks like they're doing this in small batches, these work in progresses, with a view of then getting to the 12-year-old. So whether you can actually find this or not, I don't know, because Campbeltown is very popular, Campbeltown is sought after, Springbank is still really highly regarded, so a new Campbeltown whisky has been in high demand, so they're selling out pretty quickly. So they've got a good market for it already. So if you can find it, 50, 55 quid, something like that. So lovely and sweet on the nose. Now, Campbeltown as a whole kind of historically was known for being a little bit oily, generically, in terms of their... If you think of kind of Speyside as being malted and sherry and Islay being peaty, this was kind of the generic flavour of Campbeltown. And there is a slight oiliness on it, but there is a lovely rich sweetness to it as well. Really fruity, like dark fruits, Christmas fruits. Yeah, lovely and sweet and rich, this. Not quite as intense on the nose. Oh, there's a bit of peatiness coming through now as well. Where did that come from? I wasn't sure if they did peated version or not, but there is a lovely sweet peatiness on this as well, which I was not expecting. I didn't think that was going to happen. Lovely, rich, soft fruitiness. It's not quite as intense as it was on the nose, but it's there. And then all of a sudden, this peat just suddenly arrives from the background going, hello, hello, I'm a bit of peatiness for you. But it's soft, it's sweet, it's gentle. It supports that fruitiness really, really nicely. That is some good stuff. That's really, really nice. Yeah, oh, you agree as well, do you? Fair enough. You're not having any of this, it's too nice. There's a lovely sweet peatiness to that just supports everything. It's a really nice fruitiness. It's not quite dark fruit, it's not quite brambles, it's more like glacé cherries with that sweetness. So it's not quite it's not as Christmas puddingy as I thought it would be, as it is on the nose, but it's more of like a glacé cherry, red berries, maybe some kind of black currant, no, not black currants, black berries, because they're a little bit sweeter. But we're not talking raisins or sultanas, we're talking slightly lighter red fruits. And then this peatiness is just surrounding it and kind of giving it a nice cuddle and going, lifting everything up. That's really nice. Really, really good. What I don't know is what the age is on this as well. But I'm going to guess we're looking at about 10-year-old, simply because their next version is going to be the standard 12. So as it's a work in progress, it's probably gone from fairly young to older ones. So 10, 11 years old, that's fantastic. That's really, really good. I'd be interested to know what the bourbon wood's like as well, just to kind of compare. But if Joe says that the sherry wood is the better of the two, that's a cracker. That's really, really nice. Wasn't expecting that peatiness. It's a very, very good addition to what is already there. And I'd be very intrigued to know what the 12-year-olds like as well, because they're onto something good there, something really good. Dude, like that one. Very, very good indeed. So get hold of that if you can. We'll hang on till the 12-year-old comes out, which I think it's due out this year, actually, their standard bottling. When? I don't know. It might be out already. But yeah, good stuff that, and a nice way to start the weekend off. So hope you have a good weekend, and I shall see, although this is coming out on Sunday, I hope you've had half of a good weekend, and I shall see you in the next one. Cheers.